5,
4,
3, 2,
1.
Welcome!
Welcome to Australasian Change Days.
Always a good start to the show when I'm on mute. Welcome, everyone. How lovely to see all your smiling faces there in the ribbon that I have on top of and down the side. Welcome to our fourth Australasian Change Days. Wasn't that countdown fantastic? And thank you once again to Peter Fan and his team for putting it together, and all of our facilitators who recorded their 5, 4, 3, 2, 1s in preparation for it in the last few months. Seemed a bit mysterious though, didn't it? So a bit of a mix of Pink Panther and Super Mario. So I wonder what that will mean as we go through the weekend. So I'm Sarah, the convener of Australasian Change Days, just in case you didn't know that. I'm in Perth, which has the seemingly contradictory facts of being the most isolated distance-wise capital city in the world, plus being in the most populous time zone in the world with 1.7 billion people. They're all just really, really far away. So where are your feet touching the ground? Let us know in the chat. And if you'd like to share which number ACDC this is for you, then I'd be very curious to find that out. This is our fourth. Our first one was back in 2020. So if you've had a manual car, particularly an older temperamental one of the things that one of the skills that you learn is how to roll start, particularly when the battery's flat. And if you know that that's likely to happen, then you take some precautions, like reverse parking facing down an incline. And you might think I know a little bit more than I should about that, and that's because I have had to do that many, many times. So why am I talking about this? Well, it's the moment of movement or lightness when the car starts to roll from its stationary position and it suddenly gets much easier, less effortful, less load. That moment that momentum kicks in. Now, if you're lucky, you have people around you that can help with that initial push. They need to want to help, of course, and they need to be able to help physically, and they also need to know why you want them to push a car and what's likely to happen. Now, with some of the younger generation actually might need to know what that is because they may never have had to do that. And so you can't obviously assume knowledge. But it does make it so much easier when you're not on your own. But there's also another person that's really important, and they have two jobs. They're steering and braking if they need to, but they also need to know when to drop the clutch. So you drop it too early and you stop abruptly, and the team of pushers will need to do it all over again, and you might lose some. If you drop it too late, it will still work, but everyone else will be exhausted. It's a fine balance. And it takes a lot of effort to go from stationary to movement, but it gets easier. And then others need to come in and do their part, which can go perfectly and everyone cheers or not. Which brings me to the acknowledgement of country. At a very particular time in our history, as we approach a referendum to alter the Constitution and its relation to our topic of momentum. Do we have enough momentum from the people pushing to get from stationary to movement? It's been a long run-up. Are people tired? Do they have the ability to keep running? Have we got the right person steering? Will they drop the clutch at the right time? Now, all these ideas and more were running through my head at 4:30 this morning. So that's I'm glad I got them out of my head and onto paper. But as I said before, I'm in Perth, but I'm based in Murdoch in WA, which is south of the river. Anyone who knows anything about Perth, we have north of the river and we have south of the river. So I'm in south of the river, very close to Murdoch University. And the land that this area sits on was first used by the Noongar Whadjuk people to move between the region's freshwater lakes and wetlands. It's an area for gathering, which is something that's very important to me and to our ACDC community. So I would like to acknowledge the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation as the traditional custodians of this country and its waters. I pay my respects to the Noongar elders, past and present, and acknowledge their wisdom and advice. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about the theme for ACDC for this year. The theme for momentum came out of a few observations and conversations that I had with people. In many of the change projects that we work on, much of the change effort is about go live or the first week. Then the money stops or the project stops and everybody moves on. So that was one thing that I've been thinking about. Globally, there's so much important work to do. I mean, you just look at the SDGs and the amount of work that needs to be done and effort required to do those is just enormous. But we seem to be a bit deer in the headlights. We're doing and we're thinking and talking and planning, but we're not really getting to the action. And then I read Nir Eyal's book on distraction. And I started wondering how, as a profession, we could move from distraction to action and what that would look like. Was it all about motivation? I didn't think so, because motivation is what you need to want to push the car, for sure. But it's bigger than that. So if we aren't around post-project and post-initiative launch, whose responsibility is it to keep that momentum going? Is it possible to create the right conditions when we are there to have a better chance that it won't stall? So when I was talking to the team of Joe and Denise and Kathy and Anya earlier this year, we actually talked about what would a good question be for the theme of momentum. And the question became, what unimagined possibilities could emerge if we guide and harness the nature of momentum? So I'd like you to carry that question with you through the next few days, and we'll be gathering your thoughts on this and other things. You can add your thoughts right now in the chat if you want to. I'd also like to just talk about why I think Change Days is different and what it is and how we ended up here. Now, many years ago, back in 2016, I was at a bit of a crossroads with my career. I was working full-time in a role that I didn't really enjoy, and I was looking to the future. As I talked to you before, being in WA, you're a little bit isolated. So my chances of networking and getting to know people were limited. And I was also a public servant. So my networking was very differently focused. So I decided that if I was ever going to do something different, that I needed to meet different people and I needed to hear different voices. So I looked around and looked for change management conferences, and I came across one in Berlin called Berlin Change Days. Now, Berlin Change Days was just one of many conferences around the world at the time, but there was something about it that really, really appealed to me. And so off I went from Perth to Berlin. And Holger's in the audience, if you can see Holger. He was the convener, or is the convener and founder of Berlin Change Days. So I went to Berlin and I found some amazing people there, some amazing big picture thinking, And I loved it so much, I went back each year until COVID intervened. Of course, 2020 was our first ACDC year, and it was about connectedness. And I wanted other people to feel what I felt, talking about change that wasn't rigid, wasn't traditional, and wasn't method specific. So I'm really excited to have Holger join us at the moment from Berlin. And I'm also really excited to have Rich Batchelor join us, who is the convener of Toronto Change Days, and he is also in the audience. So I get excited every year about this. It's a lot of work, but I get excited every year. I get excited about the fact that more and more people join our tribe. We have new facilitators, we have new ideas, there's different conversations, and I just can't wait to get started.